So 2025, this has been the year for crypto. We're talking massive shifts everywhere. One of the coolest things that happened was the OCC stepping up not once, but twice. First on March 7th, then again on May 7th. They basically told banks, hey, you're good to go with crypto activities, and then doubled down with, oh, and you can handle crypto custody and trading services too. Talk about rolling out the red carpet for banks to jump into crypto. We were like, whoa, this is huge, but wait, it gets better. The FDIC jumped on board too, giving banks that same thumbs up. Then the Fed followed suit and did exactly the same thing. At that point, we're thinking this changes the whole game, right? Instead of big banks going after crypto companies or trying to shut them down or make their lives miserable, they're actually getting the official okay to play in the same sandbox. Because let's be real, in the past, crypto was under serious attack. And honestly, I think the big banks were behind a lot of it because this technology scared the hell out of them. They're still pretty nervous about it, if we're being honest. Remember Operation Choke Point 2.0? That was like a full-scale assault on the entire crypto industry. But here's the thing. Even before that whole mess really kicked into high gear, there was one company that seemed to have the biggest bullseye painted on its back. Yep, you guessed it, Ripple. Both Ripple and XRP, along with the whole XRPL ecosystem, have been getting hammered for ages. This whole drama kicked off way back in 2020, and man, it just wouldn't quit. We're talking 4+ years of nonstop attacks on Ripple and XRP. But here's where it gets interesting. Even with all this recent good news for banks getting the green light on crypto, the attacks kept coming. You'd think with all the regulatory clarity, the major policy shifts, and these huge bills getting passed, things would chill out, right? So you'd think with banks getting the green light, they'd all be jumping in head first, right? I mean, we literally just saw Ripple apply for a banking license. Everything's supposed to be sunshine and rainbows now. The whole landscape is shifting, regulations are getting clearer, but nope, that's definitely not what's happening. Let me show you what's really going down. Check out this video clip from Cody Carbone. He's the CEO of Digital Chamber, and he's basically calling out the elephant in the room. He posted this saying, hey, crypto companies are still getting debanked, and this needs to stop right now. He's giving props to Chairman Senator Tim Scott for actually stepping up and trying to put an end to this mess. Apparently, the Firm Act is their game plan to shut this down. And get this, we've got footage from Fox Business where Chairman Senator Tim Scott is basically going to war against these rogue regulators who are using this whole reputational risk excuse to kick Americans out of the banking system. He went on Larry Kudlow's show to talk about his Firm Act, which actually made it through banking GOP and has support from both sides in the House. You've got to see this clip.
100%. Listen, this is like the modern day redlining. You remember the redlining, black and white back in the day? Mm-hmm. Now, redlining is red and blue. Think about the first iteration that we saw. It was the gun manufacturers that said, we won't bank you anymore. Oil and gas, we won't bank you. And then they moved to the Trumps. Melania Trump herself debanked. Then they went to cryptocurrency, digital assets. What do all these things have in common? A center-right philosophy, or these are they found themselves in disfavor with the left. These elitists who believe they should decide who gets access to our financial institutions. That's one of the reasons why I've already passed legislation against debanking at the Senate Banking Committee earlier this year. I know it's time to lead. I wanted to lead on this incredibly important topic.
Senator, what's in there? Just briefly, because you got Mr. Trump's going to come out with an executive order.
Yes.
But a law is stronger than an executive order. A law survives a change of administration.
Exactly. What we do is we eliminate reputational risk is what they're using. The OCC, FDIC.
Right. I had that in my riff. Yes, that's one of their weapons.
So important. And it is such a big weapon they use on steroids against conservatives. What I want to do is eliminate that. Good news is I've had a lot of cooperation from the banking regulators, the OCC and the FDIC under President Trump's leadership. I've been able to move them in the right direction. So I'm very thankful for the new relationship that the American people will have with the bank regulators. Massive issue.
Yeah, I mean, we all know debanking is a massive issue, right? But here's the thing. It's not really the banks themselves that are the core problem. It's all these organizations and people connected to the big banks that are causing the real headaches. We've covered this stuff tons of times before, but let's talk about people like Brad Sherman. This guy is a perfect example. He's taken serious money from major banks and banking organizations and then turns around and absolutely trashes not just Ripple, but the entire crypto space. He's out there calling it all a big scam, saying it's just made up money. I'll never forget this video clip from, I think it was 2022, maybe 2023, where he was going off about how crypto bros just make money out of thin air, which is pretty rich when you think about it, because you could make the exact same argument about what the government does. But hey, when it's the US government doing it, apparently that's totally different, right? And these arguments, they're absolutely bonkers. There's literally zero substance behind any of it, but it doesn't matter because it's all designed to prop up the big banks. And guess what? These banks are some of the biggest political donors out there. It all comes down to one simple thing. Money talks and money controls everything. These massive banks have figured out exactly how to throw their weight around and get what they want. But here's the bombshell update that just dropped. 42 banks are actively trying to block Ripple's banking license. Can you believe that? The BPI, that's the Bank Policy Institute, is representing these 42 major US banks, and they've officially filed objections against Ripple's banking license application. And we're not talking about some small community banks here. We're talking about the heavy hitters. JP Morgan, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, Goldman Sachs, basically the whole gang of financial powerhouses. But wait, it gets worse. It's not even just the BPI getting involved in this mess. Here's what's really going on, and this is super important for everyone to understand. When you're invested in technology that could literally flip the entire financial system on its head, I'm talking about completely revolutionizing how money moves around the globe. These big banks are making bank off regular people like you and me just trying to send and receive money. The whole fractional reserve banking system, it's basically one massive. But here's the part that really gets me. Think about these bank CEOs like Jamie Dimon. These guys are obscenely wealthy and powerful, right? But while they're living it up, what's happening to their actual customers? There are literally countless videos online of regular people getting completely screwed over by these same banks. And don't even get me started on 2008. Remember that disaster, the biggest financial crash we've ever seen? And what happened? The big banks got even bigger and even richer, while everyday folks got absolutely wiped out. Their homes, their savings, their retirement funds, gone. These big banks are not our friends. They never have been, and they never will be. They're not just not our friends, they're literally our enemies. They want us stuck paying these absolutely ridiculous fees every time we send or receive money. So when a company like Ripple comes along and completely flips the script on how banking works, how money moves around the world, what do you think happens? Bingo. Massive target on their back, just like I mentioned at the start. But here's the thing that should get you really excited. Knowing that these big banks are this freaked out, this panicked, this desperate, doesn't that tell you something? You should be thinking, holy crap, I must be invested in exactly the right thing. Because if they're losing their minds this badly, just imagine how game-changing this technology really is. Nix Blackwood nailed it perfectly in a recent post. He basically said the same thing I'm telling you right now. Check this out. They want Ripple banned. Here's why that means you're over the target. And get this, now we've got the ICBA jumping into the fight. That's the Independent Community Bankers of America, and they represent over 5,000 banks across the US. They're literally begging the OCC to reject Ripple's Trust Bank Charter application. So let's break down what they're actually saying in this application. If we zoom in here, they're basically opposing Ripple Labs' bid for a national trust bank charter for what would be called Ripple National Trust Bank. Now, here's what Ripple actually does. They provide blockchain-based payments and custody services to big enterprise customers, helping them weave blockchain tech and digital assets right into their business operations. Ripple's plan with this national trust bank, they want to use it to support their Ripple stablecoin and other payment services. We're talking about managing stablecoin reserves and handling all the fiduciary stuff that comes with it. Their whole vision is pretty ambitious. They want to build the next evolution of global financial services and redefine how money moves in the digital economy. But here's where the opposition is coming from. They're saying this whole vision is way outside what Congress had in mind when they originally created the National Trust Bank Charter. They're basically arguing that Ripple's goals are too big, too disruptive for what this charter was supposed to cover. Oh, and there's this interesting detail. As a National Trust Bank, Ripple's subsidiary would actually be legally banned from taking deposits. So here's the deal. Ripple Labs is managing stablecoin reserves for their RLUSD coin, and that's where things get interesting. The wildest part, these guys are literally saying they want Ripple's charter license rejected. Because what they're doing with stablecoins is completely reshaping how money moves in our digital world. And apparently that's quote unquote beyond Congress's powers. Yeah, right. What they're really saying is that Ripple's innovations could seriously hurt the traditional banking industry because it's such a game changer. They see exactly how disruptive and efficient this technology is, and they know the massive demand it's going to create, especially when this administration is going all in on stablecoins and US crypto companies. Honestly, the fact that we're hitting this kind of resistance tells me we're absolutely on the right track. This whole situation just makes me way more excited about XRP and what Ripple's building. It's pretty mind-blowing when you think about it. I can't believe this is still dragging on. We're talking about a year, 2 years, 3 years, and now over 4 years since that lawsuit started. For the longest time, we've been saying the whole legal battle was just the big banks trying to slow down or completely destroy Ripple. And guess what? Now we've got actual proof from the ICBA and BPI that these massive banks are absolutely terrified. They're scared out of their minds about what Ripple's building, and that tells us everything we need to know. Think about it. Why would giants like JP Morgan, Citi, Bank of America, Wells Fargo, and Goldman Sachs even bother focusing on a blockchain company like Ripple if it wasn't a real threat to their business? Meanwhile, all these Bitcoin maximalists keep saying, oh, Ripple and XRP will never succeed. They're going nowhere. But here's the thing. If that were actually true, why are the biggest banks in the world spending so much time and energy trying to stop them, right? They keep saying Ripple's never going to do this and never going to do that. But here's what doesn't make sense. If Ripple really wasn't a threat, why would organizations representing over 5,000 US banks be working so hard to stop them? Why would they be putting in all this effort to make sure Ripple doesn't succeed? That's exactly why you got to pay attention to what's really happening behind the scenes with Ripple. This whole situation honestly makes me way more excited about everything they're building. I think we should all be getting hyped about what Ripple and XRP are becoming because these banks are basically screaming that they see it as a massive threat to their business model. So there you have it. Hope you guys found this as eye-opening as I did. If you enjoyed hearing about this, go ahead and smash that like button, hit subscribe, and turn on notifications if you want more of this kind of content coming your way. Thanks for hanging out with me today. Catch you in the next one. Peace.